Welcome to Storytime. I'm Cerise Fairfax, and this is my channel. If you're new here, please take a moment to sit back, sit down, and grab a drink and chill out. If you are a returning subscriber, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, right now it is early morning in Sosua, the Dominican Republic, on the north coast. You're going to hear some birds in the background, also some people talking, just waking up to get ready for work, and of course you're going to hear the cameo cock-a-doodle-doo. That's my neighbor's rooster. Without any further ado, let's get into today's story. Today we're going to do a double feature. There's the cock-a-doodle-doo. So let's begin. Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm still in shock actually. I can remember when I was dating this guy. I shouldn't really call him this guy because he's no longer here. I'll just call him my boyfriend that passed on, I guess. To be honest with you, I don't really know what happened, but let's just say he has never been found. You see, I was born in a family where we usually don't do a lot of trick-or-treating. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and it's not really customary on Halloween to go out and get candy from door to door. We don't really dress up in costumes and make a big thing of it the way that it's done in Canada and also America. So when I moved to America and I met my boyfriend, we were celebrating Scorpio month. And he was a Scorpio, or is a Scorpio. And he said to me, Caitlin, let's go on a Halloween cruise. And I told him I'm not really into cruises. I'm not the type of person that can go on one of those party boats for 4 hours, get drunk, and then, get off the boat and go party more or go home. I'm not really a person that likes to drink, and when I do, I like to do it over dinner, quiet little moment with a glass of wine, and then end with a nice cup of coffee. He's a little different. He liked to go out and party, and if there was any occasion to party, he was going out to party or creating his own occasion. I can remember one time he partied just because he saw some flowers sprouting in his mother's yard. Yeah. In any case, we went out on the boat. First, I told him, no, I don't want to go celebrate Halloween. And he's like, oh, come on, it's the Scorpio month. It's for Scorpio birthdays, and I'm a Scorpio. So come on, we'll celebrate my birthday on the boat, and we'll have a good time. It's only 4 hours. It's going to be great. All I could think about was how cold it was going to be. But we all got our outfits on. I was an angel, of course. And I, dressed up in a really nice, tight, cute angel outfit with a mini skirt. It was cute. It was sexy. It was sweet. But it was also one of your more innocent looking costumes. He went as the devil. As soon as we got on the ship, there was a witch, and there were goblins, and there were ghosts, and people dressed up as pumpkins, and Jason, and Freddy Krueger, and just all of those types of scary movies and fables. But then, that one witch kept on passing by us, and every time the witch passed by us, she would say something in a very low, raspy voice. And it sounded like, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but it sounded like some type of demon spell, some type of witch spell. And she was walking by myself and my boyfriend, and then one time she walked by, she put this little wand in the air, and I could swear it looked like it sparkled at the end. Not a flame, but it looked like a sparkle at the end. Not a light, but kind of like a spark went off. And she said something and kept walking. Now, of course, the music was very loud, and I couldn't really say anything. But at this point, she had actually stopped, waved the wand over his head. I saw that spark, and she walked away. He thought, okay, this is someone just messing with him because he knew quite a few of the people on the boat, on the ship itself. We'll just call it a yacht. And there were about over 100 people on that yacht. And he said, listen, don't get afraid. Don't be scared. This is probably someone just trying to mess with me. We'll figure out who it is when we get off the boat. And I said, okay. It wasn't much longer. My boyfriend went to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden, people started to scream. And I went towards the screams. Now, I'm usually not a nosy person, but people were running past me, so I thought to myself, I better run where they're running because this boat could be sinking right now, and I don't just want to stand here like a fool. I usually don't run to the issue, but I had no choice because really, I wasn't in my element. So I ran to where everyone was looking, and I looked over the boat where everyone was looking, and I couldn't really get a good view. But then someone grabbed me and said, your boyfriend, and pulled me over towards the front of the line where people were and showed me that he was swimming. And he was waving his arms in the air. Not really swimming, but he was doing like the doggy paddle. And he was screaming. And he was screaming for me. I still can remember his voice. Caitlin, get off the boat. Jump off now. And I was like, I'm not jumping in that water. It's like October 31st, really cold, in the middle of Toronto harbor, and I wasn't about to do that. You see, that's where I relocated after I left the Dominican Republic. I was living in Toronto, and I looked over the boat and I shook my head no. And I said no, and he's like, save yourself, save yourself. And phew, he was gone. We looked and we're looking, and by this time the Coast Guard was in the water. I guess the captain must have called for the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard was looking, and they were going in circles, and they were putting flashlights down into the water, and they did that for a while. Apparently, we went back to shore. The party was over. But as we were going back to shore, I felt a funny feeling about the witch. And I knew that I was going to be the first one off the boat because that I just thought they would make sure of, so they could question me and make sure that they pull me aside. And that's exactly what happened. But when I got off the boat and they tried to usher me into the police car, I said to them, no, I need to look and wait for the witch to come off the boat. Now, everyone that came off the boat, some of them had their masks off. Some of them, their makeup was running. Some of them were crying, a lot of females. But to be honest with you, it was quite interesting because nobody came off with a witch hat in their hands. Nobody came off without a costume, because to be a part of the festivities, you had to have a costume on. You couldn't just go on the boat without a costume, and you were going to get a prize for the best dressed. So anyone that was leaving, they at least would have had a part of their costume on, even if they took some of their costume off, like a hat or a mask or gloves or what have you. Nobody came off the boat with a witch outfit. And I watched, and I told the police officers that were with me, wait for the witch to come off the boat. Nobody came off. So then I asked one of the police officers, I said, can you please go and look in one of the bathrooms or go look around the entire boat for a witch costume? And mind you, everyone that came off the boat still had a piece of their costume on. Nobody was dressed like the witch, and the witch looked just like your customary witch outfit. The officer went and checked the whole entire boat. Nothing. And then, as I was about to go into the police car, because nobody else was left on the boat, and I thought, okay, I'll go into the police car, something went by the corner of my eye, kind of like a bug. I can remember when I was in the Dominican Republic, there were these gigantic cockroaches about the size of an index finger, and they flew. It was like that, and it went by my head, but they don't have those in Toronto. So I went to swat it away, and before I knew it, it was over by the moon. And it looked like a witch on a stick. It was the strangest thing, and I'll never forget it. And we never did find my boyfriend. These days, I don't go to Halloween parties. And I don't think I ever will. Hey there, my name is Josie. And this story I will never, ever forget. I can remember it like it happened yesterday. You know those types of stories? You know every single detail, and it's clear in your mind like it happened just today. Well, that's what happened to me. I was in a gated community. At the time, I was living in Costa Rica, and I was really enjoying my, I guess you could say, staycation. I went there on vacation and decided to stay for a little while longer. I was living in one of the most beautiful gated communities that I had ever seen in my life. It was a beautiful location. Everything was perfect. Now, there were some stories that it was built over a cemetery, an old cemetery. But I spoke to the workmen, the maintenance men of the gated community, and I asked them if that was true, and they said if it was true, it must have been a cemetery from many, many, many moons ago, before civilization really started in Costa Rica, because this one older gentleman never remembered any type of anything on that land. He said he's never seen any tombstones at all. And I said, well, maybe they were buried under the ground without any tombstones. Maybe you just didn't really know. And he said, well, I would have known. When I was a kid, we used to play in these parts. And never did we ever hear anything about a cemetery, and none of the adults ever told us to stay away from the area. So I believed him. Maybe he was lying because he didn't want to make me afraid. You know, maybe he was lying because he wanted to make sure business would continue and conduct itself as it was. It was a pretty busy gated community, and it was always packed. But it was also a quiet community, and everyone just kind of kept to their own. But Halloween came by one year, and a bunch of people started to say that they were seeing different things, like all out of the blue. One woman, she said, you know what? I see this one person in my house every Halloween. It's a woman. She looks like a pilgrim. She's just dressed in very old clothing, and she just walks by my living room like she doesn't even see me, and she walks into a place with a plate in her hand like she's walking into the kitchen, but she's not. She's walking out the back door. And I said, what do you think it is? And she said, oh, I think it's a ghost. I think it is really a ghost that's still living in another dimension. She still thinks she's alive. And the dimensions cross at Halloween, and she's probably preparing some food, taking it to someone, or, taking it to the kitchen or doing something. And I said, "Aren't you scared?" And she said, "Well, I'm kind of used to it now. I kind of expect every Halloween for this to happen." And I was kind of freaked out. But there was nothing going on in the house that I lived in, so I didn't know if these stories were true or not. Until Halloween night, I was at my friend's place for a party. It was a good party. We were all laughing, and more people showed up than who she invited. Everyone that showed up had to wear their costume until the end of the night when we did the big reveal. We didn't want any favoritism. We didn't want anyone to pick someone else because it was their friend or anything of that nature. So everyone that was in the house, we even had to use different voices. It was kind of like role play, I guess. I was an old school teacher, but the makeup that I had on had to be very different, kind of like death. And my hair was done up differently. We had to be very extravagant. I'm talking about wigs and full makeup to where we were unrecognizable. And we had a professional makeup artist living in the community, and the professional makeup artist wasn't allowed to tell anybody who anyone was. So we were all in the kitchen, and I said to the professional makeup artist, his name's Mark, I said, "Mark, I'm not really into these parties or anything like that, but everyone's leaving. Some people are leaving. They don't even care about winning this prize. Who was that person that just left?" Mark looked at me and said, "I don't know. Half of these people here that are dressed up, I don't even know who they are. Whoever did their makeup did a really good job. But yeah, I did like only about a handful of people in here." Because only a handful of people were invited. Not everybody that was in there was invited. But the owner of the house didn't mind at all because, of course, the more the merrier, right? Especially when you're partying in Costa Rica and you're in a gated community and the party turns out like something that you would have in America. It was awesome. Just put it that way. I didn't really pay attention to him when he said that he didn't do everyone that was in there because it was obviously clear that some people did their own makeup or they got someone to do it for them because there was way too many people coming and going for Mark to have done in one night. So then finally, when the night rolled down, the only people that were left in the house, ironically enough, were the ones that Mark had painted and prepared. And then we did the whole entire vote. But first, when we went into the hat, because everyone had to put their name in a hat, and then we would pick their name out of the hat, and then everyone would look and either clap or, say boo, like boo, and then that person would win by votes. So we pulled these names out of the hat and we didn't recognize any of these names. And all of these names were kind of strange. None of them were like foreigner names because the gated community that we lived in was lived in by primarily foreigners only. So we got down to just saying, okay, all of these names that we're pulling out of this hat aren't here. So let's just do a vote like this. Whoever's in the clown costume, raise your hand and we will do the boo or the yay. And we did that with the handful of people. And we picked the winner. And then everybody revealed themselves. Everyone went home. And my friend and I stayed back and helped her clean up. And then, Mark was still there for a minute. And Mark said to my friend and I, he's like, "Really strange. Who did the makeup for all those people that just left?" And she's like, "Didn't you?" And he's like, "No, I couldn't do that much makeup in one day." He's like, "I'm tired just by doing the handful of people that I did. That's why I didn't even have many drinks. I'm just so tired. I can't wait to get in and kick up my feet and eat some candy and go to sleep. And we just kind of all looked at each other, and a cold feeling went by all of us, like a shiver. And we all shivered at the same time. And I was like, whoa. And they looked at me, I looked at them, and we all felt it, but we didn't say anything. Mark is like, well, I'm going home. I'm tired, and I gotta get this makeup off me. And he was dressed up like a ghoul, goblin type of thing. And he left. And then we did hear some screaming outside, but it just sounded like hollowing noises. Wind and whoo noises, and it was kind of strange. But then, all of a sudden, my friend, she fainted. And I picked her up, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm shaking her, and she's like, oh my gosh, did you see that? I'm like, see what? She's like, a guy. He was wearing like a lumber jacket, and he just walked by me, and he smelled so bad. I was so scared I fainted. And I said, well, do you usually faint? And she says, well, I did when I was a little girl. I used to faint a lot when I was overwhelmed. I was like, okay, well, you got to go to bed. I'm going to finish cleaning up here, and I'll lock your door on my way out by the knob. Okay? And she's like, do you mind? Thank you so much. I really got to go to sleep. I'm tired. And of course she was. She planned a whole party, and it was a banging party. Like I said, a lot of people there, a lot of mess. So when I swept up the last pile of dirt, washed the last glass, I had a glass of wine, sat down, had a couple of bites of whatever food was left, and packed myself a plate to go. And then I opened her door, and when I opened her door, there was a wave, that same cold wave that went by me. And this time there was a weird smell. But I just chalked it up to maybe, a sewer backup or something. Sometimes that did happen from time to time in that gated community. Never smelled that bad, like death. But like someone was deceased. But I just played it off, and I closed the door, locked it from the inside, of course, with the automatic lock, and closed the door, and I started to walk home. When I started to get closer to my door, I heard somebody say, hey. Not a hey, like a loud noise, but just a hey, a whisper. And I turned around and I looked behind me, and there was a guy with a lumber jacket on. Now, I didn't know if I should answer him, because I'm thinking at that point that's the same person that just went by my friend in her house and caused her to faint. But yet I didn't see him in the house. Granted, my back was turned to her, and I was washing the dishes when she said someone walked by her, but I didn't hear the door open and close. So when I saw this guy, I just kind of stood there, looked at him. I couldn't really see his face. It was nighttime. And then he looked at me, and he was off maybe about 20 feet away. He wasn't walking towards me. He was just standing there. And I looked, and he said it again, and he put his hand up to motion, come here. But he didn't say come here. He said, hey. Really strange. Slow and methodical and low. And I wasn't going to do like they do in the movies and play stupid. I hightailed it out of there. I was like, no way am I going over to that dude. And I took off. There was a staircase that would take me down to the next level of houses. And I ran to my villa like I've never ran before. And I had no problem opening the door. You know, in the movies when someone fights with the key and they can't get in their door because they're too afraid. Not me. That key went right into the door like it was sucking the metal in. And I opened the door, got in my door, closed it, and locked it. I was so scared, I didn't even take my shoes off. I just ran straight to my couch. I didn't even go to my bedroom. I was too afraid. I went to my couch, laid down on my couch, grabbed the little blanket that I had there, pulled it on top of me. And this may sound nasty, but I didn't even shower or wash any of the makeup off. I was way too afraid. I was not about to move from that couch, and I stared at the front door for a good 15 minutes and then drifted off to sleep. I slept like a baby that night, surprisingly enough, and I usually am not a tight sleeper. I'm usually someone that doesn't sleep very deeply, but that night was a deep sleep, and I don't even remember dreaming. The next morning, when I woke up, it was because there was a lot of commotion outside. People were talking, and they were by the pool. You see, in this gated community, we all shared a common pool. And in evenings, we would go there and we would barbecue and go in the pool. But it never really would be anyone during the daytime because many of us, we worked online or we were just busy throughout the morning, the day. It was more of a community gathering at night. So I was really surprised to hear so much noise around the pool during the morning. I looked out my window, still in my Halloween costume and makeup. And when I looked out the window, there was someone floating in the pool. And I ran out, and as I ran out, they were pulling the person out of the pool. We never did find out who it was, but apparently this person did not look human. At the end of the day, we still question who it was or what it was. The police weren't giving us any answers, of course, because they didn't want that to get around to tourists and freak any tourists out. But till this day, I can remember when they took this human-like body out of the water, turned it around, and it just didn't look normal. Some people said, oh, it was just someone that still had their makeup on from the night before they got drunk and they fell into the pool. But I don't know. I mean, look at me. I still had my makeup on till the next morning. But still, something didn't seem right. And I'll never forget it till this day. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed Storytime Halloween version. Please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful day and a happy Halloween.